And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review, and this is Dukaluke from Shadowlands. Very cool. What's up, Shadowlands? How's it going, everybody? And Dukaluke is doing great in both arenas. Does not really need any suggestions. In fact, using the pretty much exact same team I'm using in arena, except for I have Traya in the lead versus Emperor Palpatine, but the rest of it is literally identical to what I use, and is using kind of a hybrid team in ships to get over the hump of trying to face all of the different, bugs with Houndstooth. That's the first thing we're going to tackle. You asked about the Houndstooth, and a couple things on that. First, you already know kind of how to beat the Houndstooth. I've come out with actually a couple of videos showcasing how to beat the Houndstooth, and you can kind of watch those videos and see what is it that's allowing you to beat him. By the way, if they're 4-star Houndstooths, you're going to walk right through them because it's burst damage that gets through Houndstooth. So what you have to do is you have to do more damage than he's recovering in protection. What I mean by that is if you're trying to hit him for 80 grand and he's recovering 20,000, you're going to kind of move the dial on him about 60,000. So you've got to have that huge burst damage. And one of the strategies I've seen people utilize just to get through a particular team, obviously you don't want to leave it on defense, would be something like having your super fast ships such as TIE Silencer and the Imperial TIE Fighter and Poe, which I know your Poe is not very good right now, but using those in the front lineup because you can take 3 turns before they get their first turn, and you can really one-shot a ship down, including the Houndstooth. At 7 stars, probably not, but you could target the other ships and get rid of them, which is going to break the chain. What happens with the bugs when there's all 3 of them is they're very powerful. If you can take Soldier out and then focus on doing burst damage on Spy, it's a lot of damage. And the thing is, if you can get buff immunity on Spy, Spy won't go stealth. So you got to be able to land that, although Spy is pretty dodgy. So get rid of Soldier first and then Spy, and then you can come back around Houndstooth. What's cool is traditionally, if they're running this lineup, they're going to bring Sunfac in as the first reinforcement, and that is going to give you an opportunity to ignore the Houndstooth and actually focus on Sunfac and kill their Sunfac. So now 2 of the 3 Geos is dead, and then you just have to worry about taking out their Houndstooth at the end. And I'm looking at your capital ships, and I noticed you have a Chimera as well, totally maxed out, basically. And so with that said, you definitely need to focus big time on strategic dominance and get this maxed out. Not sure why your Chimera isn't completely done. The Executrix is a phenomenal ship, and you got it all maxed out except for basic. Don't worry about the basic for now, but I would highly focus on getting your Chimera done, get everything to 7, eventually get all 3 of the uniques maxed out, and then of course the crew power is actually the most important one that you really focus on and get leveled up immediately as fast as possible. I would use Chimera, and the reason is the Chimera is a little bit faster, it has a heal, and you're going to need the heal for durability. It can buff your team, debuff the opponent team, and it gives you that ultimate, which if you ignore the Houndstooth until the end and then you get to your ultimate, you'll be able to kill it and any other ships you weren't able to quite finish, and it'll be a done deal. I find running Thrawn versus this lineup works far better than any other lineup. But remember, buff immunity is your friend, and burst damage coming from things such as TIE Advanced, Phantom 2, Cassian's Call to Assist. And I noticed you don't have Cassian really that leveled up, but this is one of those special pet projects I would suggest for ships, because he's got 2 dispels. That's right, he's got a dispel on his reinforcement, and he has an ability where he can dispel, and he calls an assist. He's a rebel. He's pretty durable, so he's definitely one of those ships where you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't want to, but you really should if you care about ships. ships. And you sound like, to me, you really do care about doing good in ships. Cassian is an absolute staple in the reinforcements. He's one of the top 5 best reinforcements ever with Vader and Phantom 2. So, you know, when we look at your roster, we see you've got Vader and Phantom 2 maxed are pretty good, and that's because you understand the value of them. So focus on Cassian. Remember buff immunity. Remember fast ships. Burst damage is really, really important. Now that we got that out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to go through, you asked about Sith raid teams, so we're going to talk about Sith raid teams. You also asked about Territory Wars offense and defense. What's really cool about Territory Wars, Territory Battles, and Sith Raid is all the teams that you develop for all of that can be utilized cross-platform, meaning it can be used in all areas. So you don't have to develop certain teams for Territory Wars and then other teams for the Sith Raid. You can actually use the exact same teams in all areas. Now, there's one Territory War team that you can use in the Sith Raid, but it doesn't do phenomenal in the Sith Raid. So let's go to that team first, and then we'll talk about all of the Sith Raid teams that you can use in Territory Wars and Battles. But the first Territory War team that can be used in Sith Raid, but is really more of a Territory Wars team is First Order. And so First Order is going to be a great team for you to focus on. These guys you will be able to use in the Sith Raid, so that's cool, but they're not going to be like superstars and get you a ton of damage with what you have, and that's all right. I do notice you have an Executioner at 7-star. That's pretty insane, so that's awesome, but I would definitely get him in your lineup and replace the First Order TIE Pilot as the damage dealer for that lineup. But Kylo Ren Unmasked, Kylo Ren, First Order Officer, and Stormtrooper can stay, or you could put an Executioner over the Stormtrooper since you have a tank in Kylo Ren. But this whole team for Territory Wars to really become viable either on offense or defense is going to require Kylo Ren Unmasked Zeta. So if you're going to use this team in Territory Wars, you need to highly consider the Zeta. Now, what I noticed when I was looking through your roster is you have a lot of leaders that don't have Zetas. Those are the characters that you kind of need the Zeta on to make the team pop. And so for this team, the only Zeta I really recommend is going to be your Kylo Ren Unmasked. Now we're going to move into the Sith Raid, and these are also teams you could use on offense or defense at Territory Wars. So these teams we're going to talk about are usable in every area of the game. We're going to knock out Sith Raid, Territory Wars, offense, defense, and Territory Battles. And that's the first team which you have totally in the bag is Resistance. That's right. Your top 5 is a phenomenal team, and I bet you're already pulling in, you know, anywhere from 3 to 6 million with this team already, depending upon how good you play that phase 1. You can use it in other phases as well, but phenomenal team for either offense or defense on Territory Wars. You can chew through a lot of teams with this, and if you put it on defense, they're going to have to use a meta team to beat it, so that is a good thing. And then for Territory Battles, of course, it's just a great team to go all the way through all phases. So I did say that the First Order was kind of a side project down the road, you know, a Zeta on crew and they're done, and then you can kind of slow farm their gear. The bigger priority here, especially for the Sith Raid and Territory Wars, is going to be your Jedi team. Jedi team's going to do the most amount of damage in Sith Raid for what you don't have available to you, as well as development-wise, and then they're going to also help you really chew through certain teams or be amazing on defense for Territory Wars. And so with Jedi, you know, you've got them all. You've got Ezra, Grandmaster Yoda, General Kenobi, Bastila. This is just crazy, right? And then for the 5th slot, you could use, you know, basically anybody. But for those top 4, you really need Bastila, Sean's Zeta for the lead. That's really what makes this team pop and have durability for the Sith Raid, and it allows you to get all the way through all 15 turns of the Sith Raid, and then also she's super buffs. And then Grandmaster Yoda would be, his unique would be something to seriously consider because he's able to spread his buffs faster. You know, he has a cooldown reduction on that and stuff. And so he's just going to really pop with his unique done. Ezra Bridgers is really good, but I would say that Bastila lead is number 1, most important Zeta, then Grandmaster Yoda, and then Ezra. But this team does a ridiculous amount of damage in the Sith Raid and is amazing in Territory Battles and both defense and offense in Territory Wars. Defense in Territory Wars is great because, again, it forces them to use a meta team to beat it, and there's not a ton of meta teams that can beat the Jedi, especially a Bastila Shan 7-star Zeta lead. So definitely this is a really great team that you should be kind of flushing out or finishing, but really they're almost basically done. It's just a matter of a couple of Zetas. So I'm basically giving you a huge Zeta priority list with Bastila and Grandmaster Yoda's unique. And let's move to the next team. And when looking at your roster, it really feels like you really know what teams are going to work best in the Sith raid, and you really focused on those teams, because Nightsisters, the reason why I have them below your Jedi is because the Jedi are gear 11 and your Nightsisters are already gear 12, the ones that you need for the Sith raid. And I looked at your Zetas here, and you can see with Mother Talzin, you have her unique, which is awesome. And then for Asajj, you have both lead and unique. Now, if you're using them in phase 4 of the Sith raid, you run Asajj as the lead. If you're going to run them in phase 3, you run Mother Talzin lead. So right now, the only thing this team needs is another Zeta, I know, sad but true, on Mother Talzin in her leadership position. Now, what's really cool about that is if that you do that Zeta, it will help give you diversity to your Nightsister team to use them in phase 3 or 4 of the Sith raid, and with Territory Wars. If you want to place them on defense, you already have Asajj Ventress lead, and if you want to use them to chew through some teams offensively, you would want Mother Talzin as the lead. They work way better on offense with Mother Talzin as the lead. So something definitely to consider. As far as zombie, leave your zombie a paper zombie for now until we know what they're going to do. As far as the fix that should be coming sometime over the next couple of weeks. But definitely get the Mother Talzin Zeta, because then it gives more durability, viability, and the phase 3 team is now doing, in my opinion, more damage consistently than if you're using Asajj in phase 4 due to the changes that they had made. The third team, and kind of in the middle of the priority list, is your bounty hunters. And the first couple priorities you basically already had done. You know, your Jedi training raid team's done. Your Jedi are basically done. Your Nightsisters are done. It's just a matter of Zetas on those. And so really you're looking at, what should I be gearing? You know, what should I be spending money on gear for? Or what should I be gearing up? And so Jedi fall first in that list of gear to get them to gear 12. But then bounty hunters come onto this list. And we know Jango Fett has been added to the game on the 20th. He'll be here. And Embo is now in shipments. And then Aura Singh will come slowly after, and they will be free to play farmable in the next 2 to 3 months. So those are both really great characters. Aura Singh is a great raid character. So if you're looking for raid damage, Aura Singh is kind of that character to bring about the insane damage. Of course, you want Boba Fett, Dengar, and Bossk. That's kind of the core 3 that you can use in any team composition. And then Cad Bane and Greedo are really good kind of filler characters to change things up. Now, bounty hunters have enough, especially with Jango Fett coming in, that you're going to be able to build 2 teams, one on offense, one on defense, or 2 on offense or 2 on defense, however you'd want to divvy it up or split it up. So what I would really suggest is when you get to bounty hunters, focus on them all. Other than IG-88, which you already basically have almost done, I would focus on all of them. Zam's been reworked. Cad and Greedo are great damage dealers. Dengar is an absolute cornerstone of this team. Same with Bossk. He's the tank that you need for this team. And then Aura, Embo, and Bossk are the 3 leads that you would use in the raid. Now, Zam Wessel might have a role as a leader on a thermal detonator team, as far as like for using thermal dets either for defense or offensive teams. So there's a possibility there as well. The good news is you only need Omegas for her leadership, so you could run her as a lead without a Zeta. But Embo has a Zeta, Aura has a Zeta, and Bossk has a Zeta on their lead. I wouldn't go Zeta-ing anyone yet. I would develop the entire bounty hunters out completely. And then when you get there and you start using certain teams, you'll realize which team comp you like the best in certain phases. And then whichever phase that is, you can then decide which lead. But if you want to do a Zeta on a lead right now, obviously Bosk's ready to go. And that lead makes the team go from good to amazing overnight, even with characters that are gear 8 and gear 9. So definitely want to consider that. But this is the team I would really focus on. They have massive synergies with Territory Wars because of the bonuses they get with Territory Wars. And this team has the biggest and widest swath of available team comps for phases 1 through 4 of the Sith raid. They've really focused when they did these reworks and these new characters on making a lead for every phase of the raid, so that way you could go into any phase of the raid and play it out and get lots of damage. So really cool that they've done that, and this is just a really great option to go into. Now, your Sith are basically done. This is why they're kind of down on the totem pole. But the one project I would suggest at a minimum on all of these is Darth Maul. I just suggested this on another one as well. And the reason is you have him 7-star, but you need to get him level 85 and gear him up. He's a pretty easy gear. He's not too difficult. And he's got a ship, but he's one of the only dazers, AoE dazers on the dark side. And so there's not a lot of characters that do daze on the dark side, and he's one of a couple. So I would highly recommend him for that, for territory battles. But then also he has a ship, so he's going to help with ships. And his ship actually, once maxed out, is really, really good in the current meta, especially because stealth is going to really help with control when you're trying to get through Houndstooth and other ships and you don't want certain ships destroyed right away. Darth Maul is definitely critical in that with his ship. And then, of course, he could be a 5th, which you don't have a 5th Sith if you're running Sith in the Sith raid or Territory Wars offense or defense. So because of that, you really need a 5th Sith character, and Darth Maul could fit that bill really, really easily. So I would highly recommend you seriously consider Darth Maul, but of course this is lower down the list, even lower than the bounty hunters that I just suggested. Let's go ahead and move on. Now, we talked about all the main damage dealers, JTR teams, Jedi teams, bounty hunter teams, you know, Sith teams, Nightsisters for sure in phase 3 or 4, but Imperial Troopers are still a phenomenal option, and you already have the Chex Mix team like set up and ready to rock and roll, so I'm not going to talk about Chex Mix because you're there, but I do want to talk about Imperial Troopers. They were great in multiple phases, but phase 3 they work really well in, especially if you have a range trooper who is now free to play farmable. So I would definitely focus on range trooper and getting him up. A gear 11 for all of them is fine for now, and they're the last priority on your list of priorities, but I would eventually get them all gear 12. Veers, Stark, Death, Shore, Snow, and range. Those are the ones I'd focus on the most. Your Magma is used probably for an anti-Treya, so you're fine there with where you're at development-wise, and I wouldn't even worry about Stormtrooper. He's the least favorite of all of them, even though I know there's a bunch of fanboys out there that like him. I wouldn't put any time into him. Range Trooper, though, takes a team from good to insane. Really, really amazing. And you can replace Snow Trooper in your lineup with Range Trooper. Or when you give up Death Trooper to Chex Mix, what you would use is your top line minus Death Trooper because he's going to Chex Mix, and don't use Magma, use Range. But you'd need to have Range geared up and startup. So he's definitely a side project I would start farming now because he's a single hard node farm. It's ridiculous. But they have lowered refresh rates, and they have given it up to 8 nodes. So hopefully that'll help speed up some of these hard node farms. So Dukaluke, you're doing great. You're smoking it in the arena, both arenas. You're doing well. Shadowlands is pretty lucky to have you. I mean, you're nearing 3 million GP, and you've only been playing for 6 months, so you've been pretty wailing it out. Definitely want to focus on those teams that I've already talked about, most of which you've already developed and you understand. It's really more about those Zetas, such as Kylo Ren Unmasked Zeta. Bastila, though, would be the #1 Zeta I would highly recommend. And then Grandmaster Yoda's unique. Mother Talzin's lead Zeta, because that gives you more flexibility with that team you already have developed. And then you're going to move over to Bosk and possibly Embo It depends on, you know, whether you're going to develop out, you know, which phase of the Sith Raid you're going to do, because Aura Sing in phase 3 is pretty insane. And then just keep in mind, you're going to want to develop Darth Maul completely from the, you know, from scratch, as well as Range Trooper from scratch. Those are going to be kind of 2 side projects that you work on. The rest looks really great. If you have any questions, hit me up on private Discord. And for anybody else looking at this roster, if you have any suggestions for Dukaluke, leave them in the comments down below, and keep your gaming on. Warrior out.